Welcome to the Global Professionals in Portugal show. Today's guest is Colleen Showalter, and she is the CEO and co-founder of Portugal The Place. Colleen, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Hi, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Could you share a little bit about just tell us a little bit about your company and maybe your journey of how you got here to Portugal?
Absolutely. So we have Portugal The Place. We started the business about 3 years ago. My husband and I are the co-founders of the company, and we are in Alcobaça, which is in the center of the Silver Coast of Portugal. We're about an hour and 20 minutes north of Lisbon, and we decided to start Portugal The Place because we really should have named it "Just Don't Do What We Did."
Yeah.
When we moved here during the pandemic, it just felt like it was very difficult to find support and information. So we started the company Portugal The Place to help folks navigate their move to Portugal in all aspects and then hopefully have a softer landing when they arrive.
Can you share with me some of the lessons learned from what happened when you moved here that you were like, I wish we had done this differently?
Well, one of the big ones that jumps out at me is the fact that we were really lucky. We actually connected with an agent that was very responsive and supportive and really helped us. But even with all of that support, there's that disconnect from the Portuguese perspective to kind of the American perspective. And one of the funniest moments for us was purchasing sheets. Now, I know that sounds like it should be a really simple task, but during COVID, you couldn't go into the stores, you couldn't look at things, you couldn't touch things. So I had to go to the door of a shop, and this lady's there, and of course, she speaks Portuguese. And at this point, I didn't have hardly any words. And I just wanted to buy queen sheets. I had beds, but I had no sheets, and they don't sell queen sheets. It's all in centimeters and measurements. So I had to make a phone call to my agent, who at the time, he's a younger man, and I don't think he'd ever bought sheets for himself. I'm literally on the phone with this guy going, okay, what's the equivalent to an American queen sheet? And he's like, I don't know. So ultimately, we ended up with a set of purple polka dotted sheets that they did the job, but they weren't what I was looking for. But it was a huge aha moment of just one little tiny thing that I would take for granted that was so easy to do in the States that
Mhm.
took me like 2 hours to accomplish. So I think one of the things that people don't anticipate is how much time you have to give to everyday life aspects that you just don't even put into your consideration when you live in the States.
We were very fortunate that our home was furnished. And I actually brought sheets with me in my luggage because we didn't have somebody here that was like fixing up our home for us. I know you guys do that for people, and
Mhm.
it's such a great service, especially because furniture here is not necessarily delivered quickly.
No, it's not always delivered on the schedule that they share either. And then there's delivery quirks. Buildings might have a tiny elevator and be 4 or 5
Mhm.
stories up. I do feel like that's a big learning curve. Even something as simple as where do they put the box if you're not home? For example, you can have an apartment that has your front and your back, and your lease may say that it's one street, but for deliveries, they have to go to the other street. And we also do the big stuff, of course, but it seems that the small things are the things we talk about the most.
As much as I love having moved and having immigrated, you have to pay attention to every little detail of your day in a way that whatever country you came from, assuming you've lived there for a while, there's just so many little things that you just already know how to do. You don't even have to think about.
There
Yeah.
is an element of familiarity. We have bureaucracy in the United States, but
Mhm.
because we've been raised within the bureaucracy, we know how to navigate it. It's
Right.
not that we don't have bureaucracy, it's that we have been educated on how we deal with it. All of us have DMV stories. You come here and you add the language barrier and you add the new and different ways of bureaucracy being distributed, then it feels overwhelming. And I do think that you have to take into account that your brain is absorbing and learning so much that that exhaustion level is hard to pinpoint. You're like, wait, I always had a lot of energy. Why am I feeling so tired? You're literally multitasking in your mind because you see something in Portuguese, you have to try to figure out what it is, figure out how to communicate back. I think it's important for people to be prepared for that so that they're not kicking themselves if they're feeling tired. When we first arrived, we have a 125-pound Newfie Doodle named Dutch.
Okay.
And in the United States, the name Dutch isn't that unusual. And he was named after Dutch Bros coffee, which in the West, I come from Oregon, is a big
Okay.
deal. And our daughter loved it. And so she named him Dutch Bro Showalter. Totally like normal name in US. We come here and Dutch, of course, sounds like Deutsch, which of course means German, which doesn't make any sense to most people why we named her dog German.
German.
Like, why did
Right.
we name him? So I was standing in line, like the first week we got here because it was COVID. I was standing in line waiting to go into the Mayo store, and Dutch was with me. And the lady turned and she said, "Oh, lindo cão," which is beautiful dog. And of course, I don't know very much Portuguese, but I get the gist. And she asked me what name it is. And I said, his name is Dutch. And she goes, "Oh, Deutsch." And she starts speaking German to me. And I'm in line and I'm trying to tell her I don't speak German to a person speaking Portuguese. And I was trying to tell her my dog's name. And it was just a whole thing. So there's funny things like that that really can throw you for a loop. But
Yeah.
it's so different because we do encounter more than just Portuguese language here. When you sit at a cafe, at any given time, you can hear 5, 6 different languages. And our team is 50% American or Canadian and 50% Portuguese. Our entire team speaks English and Portuguese and other languages as well. I'm so impressed by their abilities with languages. In Portugal, it's something I really hope people understand. When you move here, in Portugal, it's not that people aren't working on things, they communicate differently. And it took a lot of work to get our team to understand that, because here, if you say, "Could you tell me the quote on a project?" They say, "Yes, I will do that for you." And then 10 days may go by and you don't hear anything.
Right.
And from an American perspective, you're expecting a quick update that says, "Haven't heard anything yet. I don't have it in this time. I'll get back to you." Those filler emails, those things that don't really say anything but tell you, they don't do that here. And so from that other perspective, it feels like you're being ignored or you've been forgotten or that something isn't being worked on. So really having to nuance into the Portuguese team the fact that I know it feels weird, like, why would I do this? I'm working on it. But say, hey, you really need to reach out and just give them an update saying you're still waiting for some information or you need to get more details. That's been a big curve to get them to see it from this other viewpoint. And likewise, training clients to be expecting delays and a different cadence in communication, because it is not an expectation that in Portugal they're going to accommodate the American. If you feel like there's areas that you can hire a professional that can make it faster, more convenient, or the areas you're less comfortable in, then there are professionals out there that will be able to help you. Because it's also, how valuable is your time? How valuable, like, you have to account for, like, do you want to do the heavy lifting on both sides? And a lot of folks don't take that into consideration, because if you don't know what you're doing and if you're trying to figure it all out for yourself, there's going to be extra time involved. We can find you the place to live. We can help you get the pet arranged. We can get you connected to all these other services. But you're going to have time set aside to make decisions and figure out which thing you want. So it is a balance, and we like to call it a collaboration. We're a team. You have to be prepared for the work that it's going to take.
It doesn't end when you get here. There's a whole bunch of more stuff to do.
I think it's the most foundational question when we're planning. What do you want your life to look like in Portugal a year after you've moved?
Yeah.
The honeymoon is over. You know how to order a pizza. You've figured out how to navigate the parking and the this and that. You've explored your area that you live in. You still are going to live here, right? Like, what is it that you want your life to be? Are you starting a new chapter? Do you want to explore a hobby or something you never had a chance to do? Are you still working full time? Is this focused on your children? I oftentimes think of relocating as being kind of equating to getting married. A lot of people plan to the wedding, but they don't think about the marriage. If you've got something you've got to work on, it's going to come with you. So how are you managing that?
I would love to hear a little bit about kind of your journey, like what brought you guys to want to move. Were you all planning on launching a company when you got here, or were you planning on being retired?
Oh my, no. Wow, it's been a crazy journey. We are one of those people that had our life turned upside down with COVID. and the work that I was doing wasn't an option any longer. It was very in-person touch point type
Mhm.
work. And so when that went away, I had a job offer to do something similar that was corporate America. It was just, going back in the grind. And I came to my husband, Clyde, and I said, I don't want to do this. I
Yeah.
cannot fathom being back in this space again. Like I'm done. It was all the energy, everything was gone. I said, what if we sold everything we owned, everything, and moved
Mhm.
to Portugal? And he took a beat and said, okay. And so we started the process and everything started falling into place. My
Mhm.
father, who at the time was 81, we asked if he wanted to come with us. And he said, absolutely. He said he didn't want to spend his last chapter in a recliner in watching NCIS. He was all for it. And so the three of us and our dog Dutch, ended up in an RV crossing the US because they closed the consulates. And we were those people that had sold the house and were kind of floating, waiting.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
And then as soon as it opened up, we relocated with no actual plan on what the work would be, but knowing I knew that I would be doing something. I didn't intend to
Okay.
retire. I
Right.
thought we'd buy like a small hotel or maybe we'd do something like that. And then as we started to see that there was this need, this gap, and we were in the tourism and hospitality industry. And so we have a lot of people that
Okay.
know our background. They started asking us, like, hey, how did you do it? Or can you help us
Right.
with this? And the idea grew from there. And then
Okay.
opening a LDA, a very big lift, and reading contracts in Portuguese and trying to get everything translated and getting accountants and lawyers and all of that. It really isn't for the faint of heart. I will tell you,
Mhm.
it is still an ongoing learning process. Bureaucracy times 10 when you get into the corporate
Right.
business in Portugal. But then from there, it just took off, and we've added services as people have asked us for services. And now, years later, we've helped over 700 clients relocate to Portugal all over
That's
the country.
awesome.
We have a team of 17 spread across all
That's
of
amazing.
Portugal. We have our offices, like I said, our headquarters in Alcobaça, where we have a team of 9 that work here. So it's great. And honestly, one of the most exciting pieces of this for us is we have hired a team of Portuguese, as I've said before, and we are able to pay more than a living wage and really bring
Right.
people into a career. And for us to give back in the community we live in and to be able to really invest back in and build something, a legacy that really does make a difference for my husband and I, that's everything. So it's been
That's
really
awesome.
rewarding.
We also moved here with my 81-year-old father. Now, were you RVing around with your father as well? Or so you guys
Yeah.
were all in the RV together?
We bought a 27-foot RV because we thought it was only going to be like a month, and then they kept it closed, and we ended up in a total of 3.5 months in the RV, and then another 2.5 months in an Airbnb. Yes, we were all, the three of us and the dog, because we thought there were two things we didn't know. One, we thought the consulates would open, and two, we thought that RVs would depreciate in value like cars.
Mhm.
But at the time, they became really valuable because
Yeah.
of the whole thing. And so we could have bought like a crazy tricked out giant RV with like a separate room and everything and sold it and made money. But because we didn't know, we bought like a little weekender and ended up spending 3.5 months. Oh boy, I tell you, when we moved to a 137 square meter apartment here, it felt enormous. And then my father passed away in August.
Sorry to
So
hear
we
that.
lost him in August. But I was gifted these years with my dad here. I never saw him happier. He was the happiest man in Alcobaça. He walked everywhere. He had a new lease on life. He was healthy until he wasn't. It was very quick. He made friends. He just absorbed everything. And for someone at that age to be so brave and to just jump in with both feet, he's an inspiration. And he came with us and he had this amazing life. And then the outpouring of love and support from the community when we lost him in August, it really feels like home now. We know
Yeah.
that we're part of the community. People came out and it was really touching. We've navigated the whole thing, moving an elder parent, going through the process of getting him set up, going through the process of having him ill for a short period of time, and then of course the process of losing him. If I can say anything, when you move to Portugal, get your will done, pay the money, get your will done, because your US will not be honored in Portugal. And if you don't have a will, it is a very complicated process. And if you have an advance directive, if you have your wishes in writing in the US, they will not honor them in Portugal. You need to have them redone every 5 years in Portugal. So if I can give any advice to people that are moving, please get your wills up to date and get your advance directive modified for Portugal. Without that, it goes into probate, and then every living relative receives a portion of your estate. So, for example, if you're single and you don't have a spouse, but you have 3 children, and those 3 children are married, and those children all have children, a piece of all of your estate then automatically gets distributed to all of these relatives, and it becomes very complicated. So get the will, get those advance directives, protect yourself against something that could cause your loved ones or yourself a lot of extra complications. Take it from someone who knows, because we did not do it with my dad right away. And I am still sorting out all the paperwork.
That's one of the part of why I wanted to create this podcast and this community, because there just are so many lessons learned from moving here and from living here and working here and bringing your family members here. And I think it's wonderful when we can all learn from each other's challenges and obstacles, and it's a blessing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the other thing people hear a lot about, and this is my own little rant, so I'm just going to give it to you because
Go for it. I want to hear it.
I need people to stop taking social media posts and forums as the holy grail. Because there is so much information on all these wonderful platforms, and there is some great, great information. But at the same time, there is no wrong or right way to relocate to Portugal. You can do it your way. You can do it someone else's way. No one posts a normal day on these sites. They either post the worst thing that's ever happened or the best thing that's ever happened. But most of us don't go around going, today I had coffee and I walked down to my favorite cafe and I met some friends and did laundry. And so you get this kind of like extreme point of view, and then people get scared. We almost didn't bring our dog because I read so many posts about the fact that Portuguese don't like dogs, and then they just run wild, and there's no care for dogs, on and on and on. We brought him anyway. In our little town of Alcobaça, there are no less than 15 veterinarians. There's pet stores with all kinds of specialty foods. We do not have dogs running amok. There are no wild packs of dogs running around. Portuguese love him. He goes into some of the restaurants, the cafes, all give him water. We go to Lisbon with him. We go to Porto. He travels all around. Yes, if you're in rural areas, you may see dogs running around. It's totally possible, and you will occasionally see stray dogs. But I almost didn't bring this dog that I love as part of my family because the impression that was coming across was that it would be dangerous for him. And so I just wish that people would just take a breath and not just use social media as their only guiding force for information.
I had the experience when we were in Lisbon. The dogs were so well behaved here when we visited. Like, I saw a dog that was trained to sit outside the shop with they weren't tied up. They had their leash loose and wait for their person to go in, do their shopping, come out and come get them. Yeah. And they sat there politely while they did that. And my dog never could have done that. I don't know how to train a dog to do that. The dogs here are so amazing. Social is great because it does give you a starting place to do your research, to ask questions. But whether you work with a professional or not, and I actually highly recommend working with a professional.
Even with a professional, you may need to try again. In the States, I moved multiple times.
Right.
It's not like I stayed every time where I thought I was going to stay. So it's not really practical to think that you're going to totally nail it.
Right. The first time. So let me ask you a little bit about your experience as a business owner here. Are there any other work challenges that you faced and overcome?
Well, you have to get out of the American work law expectations. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, we have so many things embedded in our heads that you can do or you can't do. And then here they have And they're the little things. It's not the big things. It's the little things. And I think that took a lot. Like the first year was a constant, like, wait, what? You can't do that? Wait, what? We bought 3 cars because we scout, right? And so we use the cars 100% for business. We take them everywhere. They have branding on them. They are cars for Portugal The Place. So
Right.
we bought them. We paid for them. We get them maintained. We buy gas, all the stuff you do. And then at the end of the year, the accountant's like, and you can write off, only a percentage of them. And I'm like, wait, what? So unless we bought the little white vans that you see running around, have a taxi license, we can't 100% write off our vehicles as business expenses because of corruption some years ago to get around salary taxes. I guess a bunch of businesses in Portugal used to buy cars for their employees as part of their salary to avoid
Right.
the payroll
Right.
tax. And so they came down hard. And now you only get, it depends on the car. So like our van, we get to write off a certain amount. One of our sedans is a 5-passenger. We can write off a certain amount, but our other sedan that's a 5-passenger is more expensive. So it's considered a luxury car and we can only write off a little bit of that. I was shocked. I was like, are you kidding me? I cannot write off 100% of our transportation expenses, even though 100% of them are work. So that
Right.
was like a shock to me that a company that depends on driving people and has a fleet of cars, that's not considered a complete business expense. So that probably was one of the biggest like aha moments of not checking that before, just assuming and buying cars and just being like, oh, okay. And then another is the 13 months of pay to your team. When I was calculating all the math and the budgets the first year, I was doing it all with 12 months. Just kind of missed that whole like holiday extra month pay thing. And now I know. And it's like, but it's being in the mind of an American instead of being in the mind of the Portuguese rules. And now that I understand, it's getting easier.
So you have to pay essentially the 1 month's equivalent as a bonus in December, right? So they call it
Yes.
the 13th month.
The
Is that
13th
what that
month.
is?
Yes. And so it can either be distributed across their paychecks over the 12 months, or you can pay it as an extra lump in December. And you
Okay.
put that in their employment contracts, and then you determine their pay based on that. So, that's something that is easy now that I have a great
Right.
accounting firm and I have a payroll department that handles all of that. But when I was first before we had employees, I didn't have those people. And so I was just like, doing math and, didn't take that into account. And it really adds up now that we have all these people on employment.
Right.
When it was one person, it wasn't such a big deal.
Right. But yes, over a team of 17, you said that definitely is a big chunk.
And then the other thing is if you hire independent contractors, they're called open activity here. If you hire independent contractors, if they don't get their income from anywhere else, if they only work for you as an independent contract, you will eventually, at a certain point, you'll be required to pay their Social Security as well. For example, some of our scouts, some of our guides, they're independent contractors because they don't work on a daily basis. And I'm really glad to realize that they also do other things. They have other businesses because if we would have been their only source of income, they would have still been considered employees and we would have had to pay all their Social Security as well. So it's just a little nuances, things like that. There's not a lot of small business association type support here. There's not a lot of incentives to do what we do. It isn't really set up like you would expect. Like there's not a small business loan options. Right. There's not things like that. You need to be prepared to fund your efforts yourself. And I think the other thing is just to be aware is that the corporate tax structure here is substantial. I mean, you do need to be ready for that hit because it's almost opposite of what we're used to. The more profit you make, the higher your tax, the less incentivized you are to have profit. So it's the tax thing has been a big steep curve, and it is still kind of bitter pill to swallow because you're working so hard. You want to hire people, you want to pay them more than living wage, and then you get those tax bills because you did well, And you're like, well, okay, so I'm not doing that investment, or I'm not upgrading that technology because the taxes are so substantial.
What are some resources? Now, you said you have a good accountant and lawyer. Are there any communities or business groups or anything that have helped you with your journey?
Not yet, not in a substantial way. So Numeric, which is the company that we use for our accounting, is fantastic. They speak English, really, really great about understanding, like just being patient with me, constantly going, why? even even though they know they can't really change it, they're very patient with
Right.
explaining to me like what's happening. I LinkedIn has been a really valuable resource for me with like Startup Portugal, Startup Lisboa.
Yeah.
There's been some great resources there. Upworks for contractors. There's a lot of resources to get independent folks from technology perspective through those type of resources. So I've been finding my way, but as far as other people that are doing what we're doing, or at this size, it isn't like there's a lot of associations or anything where we can just kind of go out and get to know each other. We're a mid-sized company in Portugal. That's the strange thing.
Okay.
Like, I think of myself as a very small company because,
Right.
but in Portugal, we've already gone into threshold where we're considered a mid-sized company. And
Hmm.
that's also strange for me because I don't see myself that way because of being from the United States. We'd be a very small company in the US, but in
Right.
Portugal, we aren't. So yeah, that puts us in a weird place because my mind hasn't become a mid-sized company yet, but in Portugal, in taxes, with lawyers, with employment, we're considered mid-sized. So that's a little bit
Hmm.
of a strange adjustment to get to as well.
Okay. What is something you love about owning a business and working from here?
I love the fact that by having a Portuguese business, by having our incorporation in Portugal, the company that has made us, the country that has given us a home, that has given us a chance for a life that we've only dreamed of, we're investing in. And those taxes I'm talking about, those frustrations, those are normal, like owning a business. I don't think there's anyone out there that loves paying
Right.
taxes or anything.
Right.
Um, but the fact that we have this incredible team of people on our staff that we know have the opportunity to grow and to invest in their own lives. In Alcobaça, we are in the center of the old town and we have our offices here, and we know the impact that we're making. The storefronts, the restaurants, the veterinarians, all of these people come to us and say they've hired more people. They've opened businesses because there's more people coming in. And to be a part of the fabric, to be really
Mm.
involved, it feels good because I feel like
Mhm.
we give back to the place that's given us so much. So from that aspect, it's been fantastic. And then the international business element of constantly working and connecting people and helping people like learn about each other, it's really rewarding. So from those two pieces, hands down, investing in Portugal's future, I think, is a strong bet. I just don't think you can go wrong because this country has so much still to experience and so much opportunity.
Well, wonderful, Colleen. Thank you so much for being my guest today. I loved talking to you, and all of Colleen's contact information is going to be in the comments and description of the video. So please reach out to her. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and we'll definitely answer those. So thank you all so much for tuning in.
Thank you.